Good afternoon, everybody. Here we go. We're here in San Francisco for an interview with Dr. Bernardo Gonzalez III. He's a dentist. He's a promoter. He's a rock manager. He goes by Dr. Rock, and I think here he is right now. Here he is. Dr. Rock, how we doing?
What's happening?
No, it's good to see you. Let's turn this music off. Yeah, especially at our age. How you doing?
Doing well. It's a little toasty outside.
Well, it's kind of hot out here in San Francisco, California. Let me take this off. People might think I'm Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder. Just had my operation 2 days ago. It's 105 out in Pittsburgh, California today.
Ouch.
Glad we're out here. Yeah. Dr. Rock, tell us a little bit about you. You used to work for Bill Graham, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
When was that? How old were you then?
I was in college. I was in my mid-20s, and I found out you could volunteer at the Warfield Theater. And so on the weekends, I used to go over there, volunteer, and all they had you do was stand by an exit door, make sure nobody came in or out. But you got to see the shows for free.
Yeah.
And back then in college, almost like now, I didn't have any money. So, getting to see some free entertainment was great on the weekends. And I was there so often that the head guy there asked me, he goes, "Hey, how would you like to get paid for this?" I was like, "You can get paid for this?" I was like, "Yeah, what'd I do?" So they gave me an assignment of 3 days at the Greek Theater, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Berkeley, California.
Berkeley, California, with the Grateful Dead. I did not like the Grateful Dead.
Wow. Well, you look a lot like Jerry Garcia, brother.
Yeah, even more so before. And people would always tell me, "You're not into the Dead? You're from San Francisco." I said, "Hey, man, it's Santana, Journey, and, I said, not into the Dead." I would listen to records, didn't get it, right?
Right.
And by Sunday of that weekend, I was a Deadhead. You had to be there. You had to be there.
To actually live it, feel it. Now, you just mentioned San Francisco, but you were from Redwood City, weren't you?
Yeah, but I was born here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My parents both worked in San Francisco. Right. My grandparents were here, so I was in San Francisco.
Okay, you're a San Franciscan, okay.
My dad's 3 youngest brothers came up from Tijuana, same time Carlos Santana family. So they actually went to school together, and they knew each other back in Tijuana.
Okay. Well, you don't remember. I used to live on that side of this office here.
You're right. I don't remember.
You don't remember. But I was a little wild. I was a gypsy then. Okay. But anyway, those were good old days. And so you went to college. You became a doctor. Okay. Then later on, you got into the music business yourself. You started managing.
I was in the music business.
Right, you were in the music, but I mean,
kind of on the outside.
Right.
Working with Bill Graham, right, and getting a education by the seat of my pants, because we were always there for sound check. So we saw how bands, and I was just soaking it all in, never knowing I would use this information later. And watching what Bill Graham did and how he did it and how the whole organization worked. We used to do those Day in the Greens,
right.
As well as the Cow Palace. Right. And I actually left before the Shoreline was built, which was in the early 90s. And so then I started working with some local talent, putting on small shows. And then my dad, who had a shoe store on 24th Street, was part of the Merchants back then.
Right.
The 24th Street Merchants, and they had organized and started a small group. So they did the first 24th Street Fair.
What year are you talking about?
This is like 82, 83, and I was just finishing up dental school.
Right.
And so they did the first street fair, which was a total success. Right?
Right.
But it was very disorganized. And the city told them, if you want to do this again, you need to get yourself organized. They had, there's a picture of some guy making carnitas in a big cauldron. No food booth, nothing, right there
Right.
on the street.
Health department,
Right, yeah.
fire department, yes, we know all that.
So my dad asked me, and it was just a bunch of old guys back then, which I am now,
Right.
one of those old guys.
Me too.
And so my dad, he goes, hey, you know, you work with Bill Graham, I want you to work with these guys. And I'm like, oh man, I'm rock and roll guy, man, I'm not, you know.
Right.
So, but you didn't tell my dad no,
Right.
right? So I said, you know, I'll work with him. So the first year that I worked with them, I did their security, and I ran it like Bill Graham security, which I didn't know a lot of the guys in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I worked with Mitchell Salazar.
Right.
He brought all these guys together for me, and I was running it like we did Bill Graham.
Right.
You know, you stayed in this one spot, you don't move, blah, 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 and, right? And I was pushing guys around in the neighborhood that I didn't know. Guys named Negro, and, you know, like that. And, you know, later on when I got to know some of these guys, I was like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
I could have disappeared
Right.
very quietly. You know?
I worked for you myself.
Did you?
Oh yeah, I did for a long time.
So that, you know, and there were guys in the neighborhood, I won't mention any names, but they were like, who is this guy? And I found out later because they told me.
Right.
They're like, who is this guy coming into our hood, you know, running the event? And eventually the merchants asked me to run the whole thing.
Right.
By the third year.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's how I met all these musicians too.
I worked Carnival and Cinco de Mayo with you.
Mm-hmm.
Worked many events with you. But let's go back before that. You worked all these events. Did you work, what they call it, at Fillmore West? I went to Fillmore West. That's when I started
I was
going.
still going to concerts back then.
Okay.
I was teenage when Fillmore was around.
Right. That's
And
when I was
Winterland.
going.
Winterland. That was the place
Winterland,
I went
right.
to.
I didn't go to Winterland. I was going to Fillmore West
Uh-huh.
on Market
Yeah.
and Van Ness.
Yeah.
That was my spot.
Right.
Now I was old. I'm oldies but goodies.
Yeah.
So I was going there. Little Richard, Chuck Berry. I mean Janis Joplin.
Yeah. I'm not that old.
Yeah, I know that. And so I was going for, you know, at that time with all them.
Right.
Buddy Miles, Buddy Rich.
Right.
You know, I was going for all those shows, and then later on, I started promoting in 1977.
Uh-huh.
My first show was February 13th, 1977, at the streets of San Francisco, which was the Ghetto Club before that, the Rock Garden and all those. I worked with
Uh-huh.
Abel Sanchez and all those cats. Used to go see their shows back in the day out there.
Yeah.
A lot of history, that was my history. But then further on, then I started working with you guys out here, and then I worked with Mary Wells, Platters Coaster, Shirelles, all those, Bobby Day, and I got my history.
Mhm.
And then I started, you know, meeting these guys. I mean, I knew these guys that you work with. Let's go Malo. When did you start managing Malo?
Well, like I said, when I started doing the 24th Street Fair, and then later picked up the Cinco de Mayo, I met a lot of musicians from the neighborhood, starting with Richard Segovia and Bandido. And I started working close with them, right? And these groups had to come to me to play either one of those events.
Right.
So like I said, I got to know all the musicians. And one guy that I was working with, John Watson, kept telling me that he knew Arcilio from Malo, and there was no Malo at the time, right? There was no, the band wasn't around. And he kept telling me that he knew Arcilio, and I said, you don't know Arcilio, right? And I was walking up the street one day, this is about 1985. I was out of dental school, had already opened the practice, and I'm walking up the street, and John Watson stops me, and he goes, hey, I want to introduce you to Arcilio. I'm like, no way. So Arcilio had come out from New York,
Right.
right? He had put together a band in New York. They even recorded an album, but it was none of the guys that were here.
Right.
So he introduces me to Arcilio. First thing Arcilio does, he's standing out there with no shirt on. You know, he was
I know
built
Arcilio,
like,
yes.
he was built like, I'm trying to think of the name of that boxer.
Tyson?
Yeah, like Tyson,
Go
right? So he was built like a little brick shit house. And he goes like this, he goes, here, I want you to listen to this. And he puts these, you know, he had a Walkman. So I'm listening to this music, right? And I'm like, wow, you know, I'm thinking, this is Arcilio, you know, because I remember him from some pictures on the
Right.
albums and stuff. So he goes, yeah, he goes, this is the band I have out in New York. He goes, we want to play for your event. I was like, wow, you know. So, you know, we left at that. I said, you know, we'll get in touch. I was actually on my way to an A's game. It was a hot summer night.
Right.
So I go to catch Bart, come back the next day, and he calls me. He goes, I want to meet with you. I said, okay. So I go meet with him at his mom's, which was 24th and Harrison.
Right.
And then he tells me, he goes, I want you to manage the band.
Okay.
And I was like, wow.
That was the question I was going to ask you.
Uh-huh.
Did he ask you to manage them, or did you ask him?
Oh, no.
You wanted to manage him.
At that time, to me, Malo and Santana were on the same level, right?
Yeah.
We're talking mid-'80s,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, I wouldn't go up to these guys and go, hey, let me manage you, right? I mean, I barely worked with some local bands, right? John Watson.
Right. Yeah.
And Navy and Cedric, they were all in a band. They
Right.
did three-part harmony. They were
Right.
great. And but that's the level I was at, right?
Right.
So I told him, I said, yeah, sure, you know. I said, we'll have to talk about it further, right?
Sure.
And so I called my brother up and I go, dude.
Is that Bob?
Yeah,
Okay.
I go, the lead singer for Malo asked me to manage the band. He goes, what'd you tell him? I said, yeah. He goes, wow, okay. So then Arcilio called me the next day and he goes, yeah, let's get started. Let's try and get the band out here to your street fair. He goes, and I need $50 to get back to New York. And I went, well, I guess I'm the manager, right? So there you go.
Okay.
I gave him the $50. So that was my introduction to managing Malo.
Now, was it Pete part of management, or was he managing before, was he with you?
The first go-round,
Coast to coast?
there were 5 managers.
Right.
He brought Ron Sanso,
Right.
who knew Pete,
Right.
brought them into Julio Sunsin,
Right.
and this other guy, I can't think of his
Wong?
name. No.
No. Okay.
This other guy disappeared off the face of the earth.
Okay.
And so there was the 5 of us. And we said, okay, we need to see if Malo still has any pull. Then I started to find out, wait a minute, Malo hasn't been around for a bunch of years, right? You know, none of the guys are in the band that I know of. You know, no Jorge, no Leo.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, we need to see if the band has any pull yet. So we put this show together out at Fort Mason, which was Tower Power, Malo, Pete Escovedo, and Banditos, right?
I was at that show.
Well, we had offered it to Bill Graham. He didn't want it at the time.
Wasn't he there?
He showed up.
I have a picture of
He
him.
showed up.
I have that picture of him sitting there.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I want to see that.
I will share with you.
Because
Yeah.
he showed up.
Yes.
And the place was sold out by
Right.
that day. The place sold 5,000. That day we had only sold 1,500 tickets. The good thing was I got one of my street fair sponsors to sponsor the concert, right?
Right.
So we had those funds to work with. I found an old ticket stub. How much do you think the show cost?
$5?
$12.50.
Okay.
And that was
I
pushing
was just
it.
guessing.
That was
Okay.
pushing
All
it.
right. Yeah.
So that day we had only sold 1,500 tickets, and we're like, wow. And you know, Fort Mason, those piers out there
Right.
were huge.
Right.
And we're like, man, it's going to sound like a cave.
Yeah.
We ended up selling it out. 5,000 people. It was jam-packed, right?
Yeah.
So Bill Graham shows up. And he had put a show against us, right?
Yeah, that's how they do it.
And so I'm backstage and I see him walking towards where I had two guys lined up. And I start coming over, right? Because I see him coming. And I see these guys go, stop him, right? Then we're gonna, I go,
Let them in.
let him in, let him in. They went, okay. So, you know, he came back and he said, I didn't think you guys had the money or the balls to pull this off. I said, well, we got both. So we did the show, it was successful, and we saw that Malo, the name, and Arcilio
True.
still drew. Because once Malo was over, people started to file out, you know. I mean, Tower Power was at a certain level, you know, Escobedo did well, Banditos opened the show, but once Malo was off, it started to thin out a little bit. So we went, okay, let's move forward. So, and at that point, when it came time to put up money, that's when your co-managers start to
Walk away.
walk away.
Yeah, that's how that goes, yeah.
And then Ron and I managed the band from that point forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I worked with Pete. We bartended at Bejans at the time, and I brought a lot of shows over to Bejans.
Right.
Petey was gone, and you guys were doing Malo, doing big, and all this and that. Back to I'm thinking about that show. I remember you. I'm not sure if that was the show for Mason or not, but I know you had another show with them. I think that might have been the show. You had Tower of Power. There was a blind guy, singer.
Yeah.
Was that before Lenny Williams? I think.
No, he was after Lenny.
After Lenny?
After Lenny.
So I remember the blind guy, and they were walking him out. Who was that? Do you remember who that was?
No.
I'll have to find it.
Yeah.
Because Lenny's a friend of mine, and
At that point, I was worried about where the money was. There was no PayPal or
Yeah.
none of that.
Sure.
You had to, you know, make sure.
okay, just reminiscing about that. I remember, that I was thinking about. Okay, so later on, you started Voices of Latin Rock.
Let me tell you how this worked out.
Okay.
Ron left management and he got into publishing, music publishing, working the Malo catalog, right?
Yeah.
And that was like mid-90s. And we had already had a good run because the CD Best Of came out. I'm not sure what year, it might have been 91, 92. So now you didn't have radio stations playing scratched versions anymore,
Right.
or trying to find a good record. Now they had a CD they could play,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were playing everything, you know, Nena Cafe, all the songs
Right.
that they had put together on this Best Of. And the guy that put that CD together, Neil Norman, his specialty was taking movie soundtracks, especially Star Trek. You know, once the movie studios are done with a movie, they don't care about the soundtrack. So he would buy them and reissue them, right? So that's how he made his money. And then he had talked to Warner Brothers about putting out a Best Of, and he didn't even know there was a band around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was putting this together, and somebody called us and they said, hey, you know, this guy, Neil Norman, is putting together a Best Of. So we got a hold of him, and we went and met with him down in L.A.
Oh,
He had all the wrong songs. So he said, dude, you know, here's the ones you should have. So he redid the catalog, you know, for that, and he put those songs out. And that was his top seller. That made him big bank, right? But it
Yeah.
also helped Malo
Right.
move up even further, right? Having this out there in the public and on the radio stations and the whole bit. So, you know, we went gangbusters. So, and then I had left the band, stopped managing in '98, got married, and I thought, okay, I did
That
what
was
I-
it. Yeah, you
I-
did
I
your
was
thing.
done, yeah.
Did it well. Did you do contracts with them for with Pacific Concert with Alan Beck?
No, that came later.
Later?
That came later. And then, so you were asking me about the book.
Right.
So during the time I was gone, I got married, had a couple of kids, late 90s. Ron Sanso and Jim McCarthy started putting this book together, and I kept hearing about it, and I thought, this will never get done. You know, and I talked to Ron occasionally. Oh,
Right.
guess who I interviewed? I interviewed this person, that person. And I was like, you know, 5 years had gone by and no book yet. So finally, they tell me, you know, they gave me an advance copy, right? And they said, hey, the book's almost going to be done. I was like, wow, right?
Right.
So, 211. 211.
211.
I think it's 211 or 201. I don't know. So, they get the,
It's 211.
no,
201.
ah, there it is. This picture was taken the same time we needed promo pictures
Right.
for that Fort Mason concert.
Exactly.
That's where this picture came from.
Okay. Great photo.
So,
Yeah.
so they finally get the book done, and Ron says, "We want you to produce the book release party, right?" And I said, "This is 2004 now."
Yeah.
And I went, "Okay." They go, "We want it at Bimbo's."
Right.
He goes, "We don't want it to, you know, to cost us any money.
Right.
We want to make just enough money to pay for the show. We're going to invite all these musicians. You know, we're not going to be able to pay them.
Right.
And we want to get the Hispanic Chamber as a sponsor."
Right.
Right? So that was the premise. We're going to do it. One time, everybody who bought a ticket would get a free book, right? And
It's sort of a book signing. Right?
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I forget who we got at the first show, but we got a commitment from all the original Santana guys, and Carlos was going to be involved. And then at the last minute, he sent us a bouquet of flowers and said,
Backed out.
"Hey, congratulations, good luck, and you know, wish I
Yeah.
could be there." So he didn't show up, but the other guys did, and we had some other musicians. I can't.
Rick
remember.
Rowley was on that show.
Rick Rowley.
Yeah.
Carabello.
Great guy. Yeah.
So Neil Sean.
Right.
So they did a few songs. It was a great success. But prior to the show, as I was putting things together, and I hadn't done any shows in 5 years, right? We had just diagnosed my son with autism. And that's when I approached these guys and I said, "What if I make this an autism awareness?" And they said, "As long as it doesn't cost us any money,
Right.
do whatever you
There you
want."
go. Yeah.
So then the Hispanic Chamber was out. I'd never even talked to them. So we turned it into...
Didn't need them. Yeah.
We
Benefit.
turned it into an autism
Right,
awareness.
right.
We didn't know if we were going to make any money or
Right.
not. Well, that first show was a total success.
Right.
And people, before the night was over, "When's the next one? When's the next one?"
Right.
So I told my other partner, Jeff Traeger, and Ron, I said, "People want us to do this again." I go, you know, let me get Malo in here, because I had a close connection with them. I said, "Let me get Malo, Tierra, and we'll go from there."
What year was the first show?
2000.
And that's when we had this book.
I think like
That was the.
2005? Maybe 2005, yeah, because my son was 2. Might have been 2004.
Well, I worked that show and I think I worked the rest of them. And then we were at the Fox.
Yeah, we followed up since we had all these musicians.
Right.
We said, "Hey man, let's do a concert at the Fox Theater," Redwood City.
Right.
And so we would follow up, because Bimbo's was always a Thursday night,
Right.
because we got a better deal on Thursday.
Right.
And a lot of corporate people like to come on Thursday, because
Right.
it's still a work night for them.
Right.
And when we did our 5th year anniversary at the Warfield, I always wanted to go back, because that's where I started
Right.
as a volunteer.
Right.
So that was always my dream, to go back there. So we go back, and we do it on a Saturday night. And one of our big sponsors comes up to me and he goes, "You guys messed me up." I said, well, how did we mess you up? He goes, Thursday night's still a work night. You made it a Saturday. I had to bring my wife. So that's how I learned.
Okay.
That's why you see a lot of these events Monday through
right
Thursday.
after work. Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
still a work night.
So, okay. Well, you know, the Ghetto Club. Do you remember the Ghetto Club? Do you know
No.
anything about it?
No.
I had the keys for that nightclub for over 20 years.
Wow.
Before that club, it was the New Yorker, it was the Rock Garden, and Street San Francisco.
Where was that?
It's 4742 Mission Street in Excelsior.
What's there now?
It's nothing right now. It was called El Tapatio. I almost
Okay,
bought
I
that
remember
club
that.
with the guy.
Yeah.
You went there
Yeah.
for my birthday one time, but it's history now. It's a toilet. That whole area is nasty. San Francisco's getting bad, and you also had Ron's picture of Ron's club in here. No Tip Top.
Tip Top, yeah.
History,
It's
yeah.
got many a night.
Yeah, yeah, I bet you did. With the Coronas. Not the
Okay.
virus, the cerveza.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, beautiful history here. So this went on for a long time, and finally you guys ended it. And people miss it.
Well, we did. I thought 10 years was a good run.
Yeah.
People don't realize the amount of work. I don't get paid for it, but I do raise money,
Right.
which I'm able to give to schools, right? And
Right.
always, you know, I start out with my son's school, so
Right.
I always treated
course.
him like a little prince,
Yes.
right? Because I wrote them checks for thousands of dollars.
Right.
But, you know, that was the cause. It
Right.
was the autism. And so, yeah, we did 10 years, and I thought 10 years was a good run,
Yeah.
right? And people still, to this day, going, you got to do one more, you got to do one more.
Well, I enjoyed being there. I was the guy with the with your programs. I met so many people. A lot of people were very generous. They were writing checks, and
Yeah,
you know, it was a lot of fun. It was like a reunion. I was meeting so many people. And there's Bobby the Clown, you know, and I'd be dressed up and
yeah.
without my makeup on and my costume. It was a lot of fun, and meeting some of the artists that I knew back in the
Yeah.
day, and it was just wonderful. And so many of these artists we lost.
Yeah.
I mean, this year we lost Jorge Santana. About a month, 2 months ago. We just lost Arcilio. It's a shame. Anyway, we're still here.
Yeah,
Thank God, and I want to thank you for your time.
you're welcome.
It's really great. We can shake hands. I've been tested. I'm clean. And we had the tribute today for Arcilio Garcia at La Raza Park. And anyway, I'll be interviewing Leo Rosales on Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then Gabe Menzo, Abel Sanchez, Alfie Sanchez, and a whole lot of other Pete Escovedo's
Yeah.
coming up, and you know all these people.
That, you
Looking
know,
forward to it.
Leo and Gabe have put an awesome band together. I just want to tell you, if you haven't heard Momotombo SF, go listen to them. They are the tightest
Yes, they are.
band playing Latin rock. They have Dave Martin on bass,
Right.
ex-Santana player.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, he's fantastic.
that
Yeah.
guy is unbelievable.
Yeah.
My favorite bass player right now.
Right on. Yeah, I'm expecting. I'd like to interview him also.